Ah, the Tau military. The only military in Warhammer 40k galaxy that actually uses reason and logic in their way of doing things. One that can be compared to modern militaries. Not that it helps, as many forces of this universe simply ignore projectiles. Because of simple reason.
Son, always remember, dying is gay.
Of course, there are differences. More than a few, really. Especially since this video will describe Tau the Coalition military doctrine, my reimagined version of the Tau Empire, not of Tau Empire itself. But to be fair, I must point out that I didn't change much in terms of overall theme of Coalition military. They have rather good military structure, weaponry, doctrine and philosophy of warfare. So, if you are interested in only reasonable military force of a grim dark future, sit back, relax, get something nice to drink or a snack and listen well as we explore the military of the mighty Tauva Coalition. The Tau art of war is centered around 5 great pillars: intelligence gathering, adaptability, mobility, firepower, and precision. As if mirroring the 5 castes, those 5 pillars are the baseline of the Tau art of war, which was widely adopted by the members of the Coalition. Most classic and orthodox doctrines and formations will attempt to follow those 5 pillars to the letter, while others will break the mold, attempting to replace one of the pillars or put greater importance on only one of them. Let's take a closer look at each of the pillars, shall we?
To strike without knowledge of the enemy, it's to fight blind and deaf against silent shadows.
Aun Hera, Meditations on the Art of Warfare. Intelligence gathering can be considered the foundation of all military operations of the Coalition, the first of all pillars. The Tau base their doctrine upon deep planning and ability to predict and react to enemy actions. As such, a deeper understanding of hostile forces is necessary to ensure victory. Without this knowledge, Coalition commanders might hesitate to deploy their forces unless it is necessary. Intelligence gathering has many layers. Direct observation using scout units like Tetra, Piranha or drones is only a surface level of intelligence gathering. Important but less crucial than deeper observation. Use of infiltrators and specialized stealth drones to analyze exact military strength of the enemy, their units, equipment and supplies can be considered a deeper level. Specialized Earthcast teams will look through scans of enemy vehicles, identifying weak spots and ways to exploit them. Watercast teams will tap into enemy communications, creating a translation matrix of enemy language and beginning a deeper analysis of enemy way of thinking. At the same time, deeper scans of the battlefield itself, environment, temperature, wildlife, and more will be scrutinized by specialized teams. They will help with deciding what modifications might be needed to the existing force, or what camouflage should be utilized to hide the Coalition units' movements. Coalition commanders are known for using the environment to their advantage. From targeting crucial supplies needed to survive in a given environment, to causing avalanches or redirecting rivers. Finally, the deepest layer will focus on finding out personal histories of enemy commanders and units they command. Nothing will escape analysis. Preferred doctrine, beliefs, accomplishments, traumas, and everything else that can be used to create a psychological profile of both enemy commanders and soldiers they command. This deepest level of intelligence gathering is many times what the enemy doesn't expect. In the grim darkness of the Milky Way galaxy, most people show hate or disgust towards their enemies, underestimating them or overestimating them, depending on the situation. That's not how the Coalition sees war. They aim to fully comprehend their enemy, to know them better than they do themselves, exploiting every weakness that can be found. Superstition isn't new to species of a galaxy. Not even mighty Adeptus Astartes are free from seeing symbols and omens on the battlefield, even if they were manufactured by the Watercast. If Coalition manages to accomplish their deepest levels of intelligence gathering, there is little that can stop them, as a continuously updated simulation of their enemy allows them to predict their every move. And as Coalition plays a tune, their enemy shall dance like a puppet towards their own defeat.
Be Christian Vine when faced with adversity. It's a common sight here on the Mount Kanji. It needs little light and water. It cares not for blazing heat of the summer or the freezing cold of the winter. It fears no storms and no wildfires. No matter what, Christian Vine endures. You must endure as well.
Commander Puretide. Dialogue with the mountain. To adapt, it's to survive. This is one of the fundamental realities of life. That's how evolution works. Organisms that adapt, survive and thrive. Those that don't become a distant memory. The Coalition values adaptability and flexibility of their military. As such, Coalition forces are expected to adapt to face any foe or accomplish any objective to the best of their ability. Ability to adapt to new situations and new environments is trained into warriors of a Firecast and soldiers of a Coalition at large. This adaptability can be seen on every level of Coalition military. On an individual level, soldiers of a Coalition are quick to choose weapons that prove most effective against a given foe. It's also not unheard of for Coalition soldiers to capture and utilize enemy weapons if they are proven to be more effective than what they have at hand. Although those situations rarely happen, thanks to hard work of the Earthcast to give soldiers on the ground any and every type of weapon they could dream of. Coalition forces are also well equipped to quickly repaint their military units so that even individual soldiers had a basic camouflage. In stark contrast to what people will see in propaganda videos of the Watercast, few soldiers of a Coalition would go into a battle in brightly colored armor. Although misconceptions aren't surprising, seeing how advanced AI repaints soldiers into bright colors of their septs for the sake of propaganda movies and posters. The same goes for military doctrine. Coalition commanders aren't new to using less-known doctrines, adapting those over enemies, or creating new ones, precisely to counter a given opposition. However, adaptability is best seen in military organization, which is based on smaller units that can be individually personalized for any given task. The same goes for bigger units, which have the ability to transform on the fly depending on requirements of any given military objective. Specific of military organization will be discussed later.
Good warrior strikes fast, but retreats faster.
Firecast Maxim. Mobility of the coalition forces is one of the most integral parts of their understanding of warfare. From the coalition's perspective, ground is cheap and lives of the soldiers are precious. From their perspective, ground is far easier to hold when all enemies are dead. As such, coalition armies heavily focus on mobile warfare. Even when defending, they prefer to be on the move rather than tied to static positions. They heavily rely on hit-and-run tactics, preferably striking at the enemy formation from as many directions as possible using small yet capable units. The coalition vehicles and equipment mirror that desire for mobility. The vast majority of coalition vehicles are hovercraft or are capable of limited flight. This characteristic is utilized to move around obstacles, avoid barriers and enemy defensive lines, as well as quickly reposition on the battlefield. Desire for mobility is also connected with determined goal of securing air supremacy or superiority above any given battlefield, which would allow for even greater mobility with the help of air assets. What is important, however, is to point out that ground and air mobility isn't only that coalition desires. Thanks to different species in the coalition, water, underwater, and underground ways to transport units are available alternatives. Our tanks were useless. As soon as we broke cover, their battlesuits' heavy guns were locked onto us. I swear it was as though they had someone nearby aiming for them before they shot. And when they did shoot, Emperor's mercy, their guns punched through our armor like it was paper. All I could see were trails of fire where the projectiles had ignited the air. Guardsman Cowley, 25th Graian Rifles. Report from Battle of Nimbosa. The coalition is well aware that they aren't the most numerous of factions. Their wars with the orcs taught them that they will be outnumbered on many occasions. With that knowledge in mind, coalition decided that even if they will be outnumbered, they will do their best to not be outmatched or outgunned. Coalition weaponry follows this view in its entirety. Pulse-type weaponry outmatches the majority of standard infantry weapons deployed in the Milky Way galaxy, especially as they are mass-produced weapons and not handcrafted works of art like weapons of Eldari. Railguns and ion cannons deployed in anti-armor role proved themselves extremely destructive to vast majority of enemy units in the galaxy. And while the strength of those weapons alone would be an important factor, it's the fact that they are produced en masse what is most terrifying. A balance between quality and quantity ensures that no warrior of the coalition will experience lack of firepower on the battlefield. Speak clearly and plainly, strike hard and true, move quickly and calmly. This is the way of a firecast. Unknown author. Teachings of a Firecast. Precision is considered the final pillar of a coalition military. It also has a wide interpretation. The most basic interpretation is connected with precision of fire. Soldiers of a coalition are expected to know how to pick their targets and shoot. After all, the might of coalition guns would be meaningless if they weren't able to hit anything. But this is a surface level of understanding of this pillar. Precision can be also interpreted as precision in planning, in movement of units, and most importantly of all, in communication and coordination between units. Precision is determining objectives, how to approach and destroy them, which units to utilize for the task, how they are to be equipped and transported to the operational area, and so on. This precision in communication and coordination is the purest expression of a fifth pillar of coalition philosophy of war. Upon those 5 pillars lays the greatest military advantage of a coalition: unity. Each of the pillars becomes so much stronger when one takes into account that those pillars stand together as one, just like the members of the coalition. Intelligence gathering can be accomplished by drones, or Xenos with natural stealth abilities, or important information can be taken by force, thanks to psychic interrogation of captured opposition. Adaptation to different battlefields, enemies and objectives is that much easier when natural abilities of coalition members are taken into account. After all, a region that might seem impossible by some might be seen as natural environment for one of the Xenos species of the coalition. Mobility can be accomplished not only by anti-grav engines of devilfish, but also ability to navigate certain environments. The Kroot will have little difficulty in traversing jungles after all, and Xenos that evolved on toxic planets will find death worlds as a pleasant reminders of home. With a bulk of certain species of a coalition, it's not hard to imagine what type of devastating weaponry and firepower they can bring into the battle. Not only the designed by the Earthcast, but their own native designs. And thanks to precision of communications and understanding, all diverse assets of a coalition can work in tandem for the greater effect. When all parts of a whole work together, coalition military transforms into a near unstoppable force. One more than capable of facing numerously superior foe on the battlefield and laying them low. Those who underestimated coalition military usually lived to regret it. And depending on how much they underestimated them, the regret could last decades or mere seconds. Now, as I said before, coalition military prefers usage of small adaptable units that can be modified to any possible situation. Those formations are usually fluid in nature and can be easily broken apart and reformed to deal with a given threat or accomplish given objective. For the sake of clarity, let's start from the bottom and move all the way to the top. Looking at coalition military, one should remember that they use 12 base number system. As such, numbers 4, 8 and 12 are base for their military formations. This is a slight change from canonical Tau that are known to use a lot of formations with 3 units. I decided to change it, to keep the theme of 12 base number system throughout their military. With that in mind, let's begin. A pod is unofficially the smallest possible group of soldiers that consist of 4 warriors. It is also usually baseline for smallest group of soldiers that are to accomplish given objective. A team is smallest official group of soldiers that consist of either 8 or 12 soldiers each. Specialized teams like Pathfinders usually consist of 8 warriors, while classic Fire Warrior teams usually consist of 12 warriors. Each team is led by Shaz-Ui, or other equivalent of a sergeant. Teams are most basic coalition formation. They are usually equipped with the same type of primary weapon and are members of the same species. It's important to note that coalition attempts to find balance in their specialization. As we know, Jack of all trades, master of none, but better than master of one. In this context, each team attempts to be a master of any given weapon system. But when they work together within a cadre, teams that have different specialties can create a deadly combination. Cadre is the basis for coalition military organization. This is the smallest and most popular unit deployed both in tactical and strategic engagements. Cadres are individually created to suit the needs of any given battlefield and work alone or in concert with other cadres to accomplish any given objective. There are dozens upon dozens of different variants of a cadre, different in terms of size and composition. Despite what some books might make you believe, a cadre isn't equal to an Imperial Guard regiment. Quite the opposite. A single cadre usually consists of around 50 soldiers. Despite their smaller size, most cadres have their own vehicles and battlesuits, allowing them to face more numerous Imperial Guard companies head to head. Most cadres share a characteristic that they can be deployed by a single Manta gunship. Manta is considered an ideal vehicle for deployment of cadres. It gives a cadre ability to be deployed from space, good protection and firepower on approach to the landing zone. Manta gunship outside of its considerable firepower is capable of deploying majority of standard-sized cadres on the battlefield. Manta has 2 decks, upper and lower, each with their own capacity. Small note, I changed Manta capacity a little bit to better fit my vision of coalition military formation, making it a little bit more consistent. Upper deck is capable of housing 48 soldiers, alongside commander and his 3 guards, and a unit of 8 drones. So it has a total capacity of 52 soldiers and 8 drones. Of course, the composition of upper deck passengers can change and be adapted to house an impressive swarm of drones or multiple packs of Kurt hounds. This is rather rare, however, and the vast majority of cadres deployed on the ground usually possess infantry support equal to at least 48 warriors that can fit on the upper deck. Lower deck is more versatile in terms of what can be placed within. Lower deck can be used to transport a lot of infantry. It has space for 144 soldiers. So, if it is required, a single Manta can deploy almost 200 fire warriors onto the battlefield at once, which is a lot. There is a certain quote in Warhammer 40k about how none should scoff at the humble lasgun, for they never had to run through a field of 100 of them. I bet that running through a field of 200 pulse rifles is far less pleasant. Luckily for the enemies of the greater good, infantry-only cadres are extremely rare to be deployed. Usually this space is reserved for battlesuits and vehicles. Central holding rack was designed to hold up to 12 XV8 Crisis battlesuits, so 3 Crisis battlesuits teams. The same rack can be instead used to hold up to 6 XV88 broadside battlesuits, so 3 broadside teams. Remaining space is usually reserved for vehicles, either 4 of Devilfish size or 8 of Piranha size. With that much space, Manta is capable of deploying a very diverse variants of cadres, from a mass of 196 infantry to squadrons of hammerheads with infantry support. The most common type of cadre that is deployed by the coalition is a hunter cadre. This cadre is seen as the backbone of military operations. A hunter cadre consists of 1 command team, 1 cadre fireblade and his 3 honor guard, 2 fire warrior teams, 12 warriors each, 1 usually deployed with pulse rifles and 1 with pulse carbines, 2 pathfinder teams, 8 warriors each, 1 auxiliary or breacher team, 8 warriors each, 1 sniper team, 1 operator and 3 sniper drones, 1 drone team, 4 gun drones or support drones, 2 XV8 crisis teams, 4 crisis battlesuits each, 1 XV88 broadside team with 2 broadside battlesuits, 1 Piranha team with 2 Piranha skimmers, 1 hammerhead gunship, 1 Skyray defense gunship, and 1 devilfish or swordfish. That gives us a rather balanced unit consisting of 52 infantry, 7 drones with 1 operator, 10 battlesuits, and 5 vehicles. This composition, of course, isn't set in stone. Piranhas, hammerheads, and Skyray can be replaced with devilfish to give a unit greater mobility, or Pathfinder and Breacher teams abandoned for the sake of 2 additional Fire Warrior teams. Composition given above ensures wide range of capacity and ability to engage different objectives. Fire Warrior teams can easily engage most of the enemy infantry on the battlefield on equal footing. Pathfinders give not only greater scouting capacity, but with their specialized training to handle ion rifles and rail rifles, cadre gains clear anti-armor capacity. Breacher or auxiliary teams are usually there to counter anyone who would decide to get in close. Breachers equipped with pulse blasters, also known as pulse shotguns, are more than capable of ripping even the most determined enemy into chunks of flesh. Crude and other species that are more adept in fighting at close range can replace breachers in this role. Sniper team allows for targeting and elimination of primary targets, like enemy commanders. Gun drone unit can be used both for scouting as well as destruction of enemy units. Support drones equipped with shield generators can grant entire cadre greater protection from enemy fire. Crisis battlesuits ensure that cadre will not lack firepower or quick response units. Those battlesuits can land critical hits on the enemy when the rest of the cadre pins them in place. Broadside team gives crucial anti-heavy armor or anti-infantry support. Their guns and missile pods can keep most enemy hunkered down in place. Piranhas are very important for long-range scouting and flanking of enemy positions. The role of heavier vehicles is obvious. Hammerhead is there to counter enemy armor directly and support broadside in their anti-tank role. Skyray is there to ensure that Critical targets and fortifications can be eliminated from long range, as well as that enemy air assets can be eliminated. Devilfish is there to give help with transport, or taken in its place Swordfish will grant cadre fast-firing plasma cannon that can be used both against ground and air targets. Of course, all of this is what can be transported in a manta alone. When the main force is deployed, it's not unheard of for the cadre to be boosted with additional support, usually in the form of ground vehicles like Devilfish, to relieve manta from the task of long-range transport on the battlefield. As it was mentioned before, Hunter Cadre is just one of the cadre variants, and as I explained, even this cadre composition isn't set in stone. Depending on the enemy they face or objective at hand, a cadre will be constructed to face any given challenge. Coalition usually recognizes 4 main types of units that are part of a cadre: infantry, battlesuit, vehicle, drone. Cadres that consist of only one unit type are beyond rare. In worst case scenario, a cadre will consist of 2 types of units. A tank hunter cadre will be focused around mighty hammerheads, but broadsides will be present as well, or specialized drones to help with targeting of enemy units. Infantry cadre won't deploy without good number of drones to grant them greater protection. Swarms of drones will usually have at least one vehicle dedicated to coordination of the unit. Ideal cadre combines all types of units to fully utilize the concept of combined arms warfare, even on the scale of such small unit as a cadre. Contingent is usually formed from between 4 and 12 cadres. They are usually formed to accomplish a given objective. Contingents are seen as the smallest strategic unit on the field, each tasked with an individual objective or enemy unit to deal with. Contingents usually match the size of bigger Imperial Guard companies, or in some cases, smallest of Imperial Guard regiments. Contingents are usually under command of Chassel, who proven themselves as commanders of a cadre beforehand. They are usually created out of a core of hunter cadres and few specialized cadres to boost their ability to accomplish a given objective. When the objective is completed, contingents are either redirected to a new target or broken apart and their parts were formed into new formations. It's not unheard of for a contingent consistent of 12 cadres to break into 3 smaller ones of 4 cadres each to handle 3 separate objectives before reforming into singular contingents once again to handle another threat. The fact how easily coalition formations can break apart and reform into new ones, even on this level, usually leaves enemy commanders dumbfounded and unable to determine the true size and power of any given contingent. Commune is created from between 4 and 12 contingents. This unit of impressive size is always led by Chasseur. On this level of organization, one can start to expect to see an ethereal to appear within such unit. Communes are always created from the members of the same sept, or even more likely, are native to the same world within a given sept. Communes are usually the first units that can be considered equal in size and firepower to some of Imperial Guard regiments. Similarly to contingent, commune is rather fluid formation in its nature. They usually are tasked in taking care of very specific fragment of a front or a region. They can also be deployed with specific task of elimination of marked enemy unit. Communes use mobility and flexibility of their individual parts to commence battle. What on the outside might seem like dispersed and disorganized attack of few contingents is in fact well-organized military operation. Section is usually under command of veteran chasseurs, possesses ethereal and commanders from water, earth, and air caste, and is formed from between 4 to 12 communes. Sections are usually the biggest formations where all units that consist of a section come from the same planet of any given sept. Section can be considered baseline of strategic size military units of the coalition and possesses their own air assets, engineering corps, as well as water caste teams. It's also on this level where some sections are given command of small units of special forces, lancers, who specialize in doctrine of Monad, the lone warrior. A full-size section can easily face even massive Imperial Guards regiments, counting tens of thousands of guardsmen. Those units are created to handle a given portion of a front or sizable region. Sections will operate on a grand scale with the intention of securing a dozen of objectives at the same time, utilizing coordination on a grand scale to attack enemy units from all possible directions. Corps can be considered a mighty unit on strategic level, tasked with handling operation on entire sectors of a continent. Their numbers can exceed 1 million soldiers and are created from between 4 to 12 sections. Outside of their own council of all castes, Corps usually possess a small group of ethereals to give direct support and ensure unity between units of the Corps. Each individual Corps has access to a special forces unit, even if it's really small. Those units are deployed by direct command of ethereals to eliminate specific targets like enemy commanders or their communications centers. Corps are usually the biggest formations that come from the same sept. Ultimatum is what many would consider a field army tasked in taking care of warfare on a scale of continents and sometimes entire planets. Their numbers usually exceed 12 million soldiers and are created from 4 to 12 corps. This military unit is usually under command of High Commander or High Command Council, made by members of all castes and representatives of all present members of a coalition. Ultimatums are usually created from forces native to different septs and members of the coalition. It's on this level of military structure where separate military forces of a coalition members that didn't fully adopt formations of a wider coalition will connect to the greater force. Unions are created from 4 to 12 ultimatums, usually counting 100 million soldiers. A union can be seen as planetary army, usually tasked with either defense or capture of a planet. Congregation, also known as expansion army, can count more than 1 billion soldiers, and it's created from 4 to 12 unions. Those units are usually deployed as a heart of expansion forces and under command of Supreme Commander. They are the highest form of military formation in the coalition. Finally, here we are. Doctrines of the coalition. I kept you waiting quite a bit to get to this part, didn't I? Well, before we go into the specifics, I want you to understand something. For the Tau, military doctrine isn't merely how one engages in warfare. It's a certain way to interpret Tau philosophy of war, how one should interpret each pillar of warfare and how to apply them into conflict. Let's start with 3 best-known doctrines, Montcalm, Quayon, and Monad, before we move to 3 additions of my own creation. The killing blow is the main offensive doctrine of the Tao. It's based on the idea of carefully planning and analyzing enemy weak and strong points before striking at the enemy with intention of complete destruction of crucial elements of enemy formation. Without those crucial units, it is assumed that the rest of enemy force will be quick to crumble and will be easier to deal with. Those who follow the doctrine of Montka must balance patience with decisiveness and burning aggression. A strike force might wait for days or even weeks for a perfect moment to strike and decapitate the enemy. Montka commanders can't act too soon or too late, or the entire attack will fall apart. Montka is connected to the idea of taking the initiative from the enemy in the exact moment when coalition commander decides to take it. Looking at the pillars of philosophy of warfare, one can see how important intelligence gathering is for this doctrine. Without pathfinders, scouts and stealth teams, preparing a true Montka might prove impossible. Montka also puts a lot of weight at the aspect of mobility of any given force. The coalition units are to attack and destroy target in quick operation. If target proves too resilient or the enemy manages to recover from sudden shock, Montka units are expected to retreat as quickly, if not quicker, than they attacked. No matter if Montka is successful or not, the enemy should be left confused and disoriented, chasing shadows when coalition force is already beyond their reach. If a Montka fails, the process of intelligence gathering and preparations starts anew. Crisis battlesuits are seen as personification of Montka doctrine, and as such, commanders following this doctrine will be usually seen within such suit. Kauyon, on the other hand, is more defensive ambush tactic. It allows the enemy to take the initiative, luring them into a trap before beginning the attack. Unlike Montka, Kauyon isn't reliant on extreme levels of intelligence gathering. This doctrine allows the enemy to show their hand themselves to the coalition commander. Stealth and usage of environment is most important in this doctrine. With the help of a lure, the enemy walks into designated kill zone, only to face overwhelming firepower of coalition forces. Commanders following doctrine of Kauyon are calm, patient, and adaptive. They focus on stealth and firepower to accomplish their goals. They are also overall reactive commanders rather than active. Similarly, unlike Montka commanders, they prefer to remain unseen, to accomplish their goals by total annihilation of enemy forces rather than of precise destruction of their crucial elements only. Stealth suits are most commonly associated with Kauyon doctrine. Less known, but equally important military doctrine of Tao is Monat, the lone warrior. When Montka and Kauyon seek to interpret and apply teachings of 5 pillars on a grand scale, Monat seeks to implement those teachings on an individual level. To be Monat is to be one-man army, to become one of the Lancers, member of the special forces of a coalition that can be tasked with any objective and expected to accomplish their goal. What is interesting is that way of lone warrior doesn't mean that Lancers work solo. Quite the opposite. They are each trained to be good at everything and genius in one very specific specialization. Strength of a Monad doctrine is that objectives can be given to individuals, small squads, or even entire cadres of killing machines. Lancers can be compared to the Tempestus science of the Imperium of Man, and agents of Officio Assassinorum, both. They are deployed by the direct command of the Ethereals and accomplish objectives that couldn't be taken by commanders practicing Mont'ka or Quayon. If there is a target that is defended so well that no Mont'ka can breach their defenses or no way to lure them out into Quayon, Coalition sends those who follow Doctrine of Monad to get the job done. Now, with major 3 doctrines out of the way, let's get into my creations. First one is Hundali, the Biting Swarm, and it's exactly what one would expect. This doctrine is definition of death by 1,000 cuts. It's based around the idea of constant, never-ceasing attacks, of small or medium potency, systematically weakening the opponent. One would assume that this doctrine is based around fast-moving light units like Piranha, but they would be wrong. The Biting Swarm is more complicated. The doctrine itself was initially created for naval combat, where fleets of smaller vessels would swarm around far bigger craft, splitting its firepower and chipping down its defenses. This doctrine was adopted by the ground forces with slightly different interpretation. Hundali is first and foremost exhaustion doctrine. No matter what time it is, no matter where, the enemy must be constantly under attack or be afraid of an attack. It can be something as simple as using snipers to kill patrols, or random and unexpected artillery bombardment, or stealth teams sabotaging enemy supplies. Hundali is based around the concept of completely exhausting the enemy, mentally and physically, denying them battle and bleeding them in any way possible. This doctrine works greatly in preparing the enemy for devastating Mont'ka, or making the enemy so desperate to have clear battle that they will willingly fall into trap of Quayon. Hundali very quickly became one of the favorite doctrines of the Coalition commanders, who utilize it before enacting Mont'ka or Quayon. Otoshi Adha is one of the most bizarre of Coalition doctrines, especially since it's based around static defenses which are frowned upon by most Coalition commanders. Despite the lack of popularity, Otoshi Adha proven to be an effective way to combat enormous wags and halting their advance. The doctrine demands creation of network of bastions in a checkerboard pattern. Each bastion should be well defended and preferably directly connected with neighboring bastions, although it's obvious that something like this cannot be always achieved. Space between each bastion should be filled with weaker defensive lines, specifically constructed in such a way that forces defending those lines can quickly retreat to each individual bastion. Pitfall Barrier creates an illusion of a singular line of defenses, which enemy will attack, seeking weak points. Weak points that will be found relatively quickly, as they are placed there by design. When the enemy commits into the attack, Coalition will intentionally retreat, creating illusion of a breakthrough, so that enemy will commit even more forces into the breach. Only then this breach will be revealed as a well-prepared kill zone that can be targeted by multiple bastions, preferably from both flanks and the front. As the enemy bleeds and struggles to break out of a trap, reinforcements from other bastions and reserves will begin a counterattack, and encirclement of forces fighting within falls breach, with the goal of total annihilation of enemy forces there. In this way, Otoshi Adha combines doctrines of Quayon by creating a lure that leads to a kill zone and Mont K by striking out of bastions and cutting off enemy reinforcements and a way to escape. This doctrine replaces Pillar of Mobility with defensiveness, and that of Intelligence Gathering with resilience. Coalition commanders are rare to use this doctrine, and if it is enacted, it's usually a sign of desperation or lack of understanding of enemy forces. Last of the great doctrines is Atoka, Overwhelming Blow. The doctrine's name says it all: shoot it until it can't move no more. Variants of this idea were present among lesser supportive doctrines, until it was codified not that long ago and made into a reasonable doctrine in the hands of a coalition. Atoka is based on the idea of overwhelming firepower, especially that of artillery and heavier units. It cares little for intelligence gathering or mobility. Its goal is simple: cover given objective with enough fire that enemy won't be able to survive. At the first glance, this doctrine seems primitive and inefficient, something one could suspect from World War I scenario or artillery regiments of Imperial Guard. Atoka, however, is a bit different in its nature. It was created with an intention of being clear, supportive doctrine that can be implemented side by side with other doctrines. Coalition commanders realized their numerous advantages in the realm of long-range artillery. When vast majority of enemy forces uses propellant-based ammunition, Coalition uses railguns. Propellant that pushes shells out of barrel has an upper limit how quickly it can expand and how quickly shell can move. Railguns don't have that limitation. If you have enough energy, you can have far greater range than almost any other artillery piece of the enemy. Additionally, with the popularity of missiles in the coalition, this doctrine became a more obvious solution to many problems. Atoka allows for systematic weakening of enemy positions and their fortifications. It allows to redirect enemy attention to the target of bombardment. It can pin enemy forces on the move and with proper deployment of weapons, destroy targets far behind enemy lines. Maybe even their landing zones if they are invading one of the coalition worlds. Most coalition commanders won't say it out loud, but Atoka quickly became a crucial part of almost every coalition campaign. Small artillery formations that have far superior range to those of coalition enemies can cause significant amount of damage and disturb their supply lines. Additionally, it's really easy to use in concert with other doctrines. In case of Mont K and Quayon, Atoka is great at keeping enemy reinforcements pinned in place. More than one Monad team managed to sneak into given facility thanks to distraction created by Atoka. Hundali is happy to utilize a form of Atoka to take the exhausted enemy by surprise, a pattern of small to medium scale attacks, suddenly broken by overwhelming artillery barrage that leaves enemies stunned and scrambling to defend themselves. Otoshi Atha is more than happy to utilize Atoka both in form of cutting the reinforcements as well as thinning out enemy forces before they engage defensive lines. This doctrine is also responsible for development of numerous new types of railgun artillery and ammunition for it, including mines deployed by artillery. As one could suspect, commanders who enjoy Atoka can be usually found piloting broadside battlesuits or Skyray gunships. So, here you go, the coalition military, everything from philosophy of war, organization, and doctrine. Of course, this isn't all that there is to coalition military. As said in the video, some members of a coalition have their own formations, organizations, and doctrines that work alone or in concert with the main coalition forces. I know it was a while since the last video, but real life kept me busy, so I hope you can forgive me this delay. If you can, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, the whole shtick. You know what to do. I will try to make more videos soon enough. I will probably focus on the species of a coalition now. I want to keep it quick and simple. A rapid-fire mini-series without me mumbling for hours on end. But that's not a subject for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!